And I literally had GMs calling my home phone at 3 in the morning.
Oh, crap.
And this GM calls me panicked. It's 3 in the morning.
Oh, no.
He's like, I'm just spawning Guardians of Blizzard. They were these giant infernals that we just made that instantly death touched anything. And this GM is just spawning them all over Stranglethorn Vale. It's like 3 in the morning and I'm talking in hushed tones because my wife is sleeping right next to the bed.
This next segment is only like 20 something minutes. And then the White Titan failed one I think sounds interesting too. But he's starting off with a question about polish. So let's check it out.
They a big part of that delivered these games that were just got so many pieces right and well functioning and well coordinated and just feel finished in a way that a lot of other games don't get right. So what does it take to take this gigantic game, this game played by millions of people, loved by millions of people, and deliver it in a way where it's like it all just works?
I think this is a good question because every time I talk to someone about why they play WoW, there's a lot of different reasons, but like MMO players by and large say like one thing repeatedly, and it's the game is so smooth. Every other MMO that comes out, you run around and it's laggy and janky and it doesn't feel good, but WoW is snappy, it's smooth, it's polished. You get in and it's just like, yes, I am my character. This feels great. And that's kind of this polish question. It's like, it just feels good. It's not janky, you know? Even if I want to play another MMO, like it just feels janky. It's like, ugh.
To have a level of polish is like a studio-wide culture that has to be instilled in everybody. Like no one can be satisfied with a bug. Every game is going to have bugs, and Blizzard games have bugs. It's a question of how quickly do you fix them and with what urgency. And as players ourselves, if we're playing as much as anybody else, we're going to be motivated to fix the bugs. There are some really tactical aspects to it too. The quality assurance department at Blizzard is the best in the industry. Like the people who come and do QA at Blizzard, they're passionate gamers. Many of them want to be developers themselves, and they're not just doing it for a job. They do it because they fucking love the game. And the relationship we tried to develop between us on the development teams and QA was extremely tight. And whenever possible, we also tried to sit as many QA members up with the development team as possible. Depending on the logistics of, in the early days, we didn't always have the space for all of QA to sit with us. We were very fortunate on the Overwatch team to have a large amount of QA sitting with us. And then developing that relationship, in the early days, there were these fears of like, well, QA can't talk to the developers, and trying to shatter that because some of our QA members knew the game so inside out. You would just say to them like, hey, dude, just message me anytime. Here's my home number. Like, call me if there's a bug. If you think we're going to get raked over the coals on this, you got to speak up. I don't care what the chain of command is. Like, we got to fix this thing. So QA was amazing.
I mean, so can you speak to QA quality assurance at the peak of the craft? What does it entail? Like, you're basically experiencing the game and trying to figure out on a particular slices of that experience that could be improved.
Yeah, people simplify the role by just, these guys just get to play games all day and then like let us know if there's a bug. They are so systematic in the way they test stuff. They come up with these plans that are actually amazing of like who's going to test what. There's a lot of regression testing that goes on. Within QA, there will also be compatibility testing. The Blizzard compatibility department was amazing. Like they had every card, every machine, every configuration, and they would roll through to make sure there wasn't some quirk that was going to come up on some video card or some motherboard that you weren't expecting. But it was all very systematic. It wasn't just Wild West, let's play the game. And then as a developer interacting with QA, you would find that there were certain specialists, whether like for example, on Overwatch, there were a couple of players that, like, we all were shooter players when we were making Overwatch, but I'm not like esports level shooter player. I'm like, Gen Xer, remember Doom, how good I was, type of shooter player. But we had, a couple of these QA specialists who, like, they could just snipe from 100 meters out and hit the shot every time and tell us if there was a frame of input delay, and then you sit that person with an engineer and say, hey, I think there's some input lag here.
That's amazing.
And sure enough, they'd be right. But you have to have that
That's still kind of how it works. A lot of people that I know that were like top level PvPers, sweaty, super, every little tiny nook and cranny of the game at a technical level they understood, because it's like that stuff matters when you're top 0.1%, right? And they go apply at Blizzard, they get the QA jobs, right? The QA jobs are the ones, obviously they're a little lower paid, they're like entry, but yeah, then the developers talk to these guys, and these guys like have played the darn game. There's, what is it called? Like there's a game play paradox or something, where like there's people that make the games and the people that play the games, and the people that like play the games oftentimes know the direction better than the people that make the games, because the people that make the games don't have the time to play the games as much as the time of the people that play the games have the time to play the games, right? I'm probably butchering that a little bit, but the people that are QA testers have the time to play the game, so their information and the value they can give to the devs is so important, right? And like, it's so important. It's the sweaty guys, man. It's like the guys like us that are just in the trenches playing the game. And yeah, anyway, shout out to the QA team, man, because it makes a big difference. So you QA guys, keep sending.
Relationship where the devs trust QA, or just even on like World of Warcraft, they had a great relationship with QA, and that they built out a full raid team to do the raids. And then you're not only like looking for bugs, like, hey, the dragon was supposed to fly and instead it just like sunk through the world and the game crashed, which would happen. But like, if you really value QA, you're asking them, what do you think? Like 10 million people are going to see this. Your opinion, multiply it. It matters. What do you think? Are you having fun? Oh, yeah, this is cool. This isn't cool. So QA was important. The other thing that was important is the Blizzard engineering, which you have to architect your game to be hot fixable. And what a hot fix is, games, there's a couple ways to fix them. The way most of us know, because all the software we have gets a patch. You have to update it. You have to download a new version of it. Windows, you get that annoying message, like there's a new version of Windows, and it takes, a few minutes and you update it. Obviously we patch our games, and that's where we fix a lot of bugs. But if you really want to run a game like Overwatch or World of Warcraft successfully, you need master level engineers who have architected the client and server in such a way that you can hot fix the game on a dime. And what a hotfix is a server patch that no one's client has to go down for.
Mm-hmm. It's because you're dealing with a huge number of players and you discover an issue and you want to respond to that issue really quickly.
Yeah, there's emergency issues, like something's crashing. Like the worst case scenario is anytime the server's crashing. Or in Overwatch, like a really catastrophic bug would be something where you have to disable a hero. Like someone found an exploit and you have to disable a hero from the lineup. You want to turn around that hotfix if you can in half an hour get that hero back live, you might have somebody who only plays that hero, and the only reason they're going to play Overwatch is because that hero is active. You don't want to wait for patches, and you want to hotfix as fast as you can.
And then also to improve the game quickly, to just even subtle stuff.
Players feel it. Like that's where there's this idea of like the love and the craftsmanship of the developer that you can feel. Like any product, your iPhone or Android or like any computer or consumer product, you can feel when there are people who loved it behind it and aren't just putting it out on a shelf. And games have that as well, where you can feel the like heart and soul of the developer in the thing. And some of that's like the joy and delight of like that there's a cow level, right? That's you can feel the humanity of the development team through that.
Very true.
Another part of that is like, do they clean up their fucking yard? Does this game work? Is it? And it's not just the bugs and the crashes. It's like when balance gets wacky and stupid and, suddenly everybody's a barbarian and whirlwinding and no one else will play anything else. You're like, we should probably fix that.
Yeah.
Those were the days. I sadly was the barbarian whirlwind guy.
One-handed.
It brought so much joy. So a lot of people modern day think of you as Jeff from the Overwatch team.
My name is Jeff from the Overwatch team. I'm Jeff from the Overwatch team. I'm Jeff from the Overwatch team.
Nice. Hi, Jeff.
You almost have forgot. You were the game director of WoW in an era when WoW was one of the biggest games in the world. Just, looking back, what wisdom can you draw from that time when you got to experience this era of gaming that changed gaming forever, where it's millions of people playing this video game?
It was my first game I worked on, and I joined it as this entry-level dude.
Yeah.
I still have my offer letter from Blizzard, which was for $35K a year. That's what I was making. And very shortly after WoW shipped, Alan left his lead before the beta, or like right around the beta. And then Rob took over as the lead designer. And then he left the team very shortly after WoW shipped to go start StarCraft 2. And he put myself and Tom Chilton in charge. Tom is a designer he was a great partner of mine and a great leader. And he actually came from Ultima Online. And so I always looked up to Tom because he had a lot more experience than I did. And this is like early 2005. The world was on fire. The servers were barely running. WoW had taken off like gangbusters. And they basically put me and Tom in charge of WoW. And at the time they promoted me, my title, I didn't even have a lead title. My title was senior game designer. And Tom and I were running the design of WoW at that time. So I thought it was totally normal. And I thought what we were experiencing with WoW was just normal for making a video game because it was the first video game that I had worked on. I thought it was the funnest joyride because we were working on WoW. We were still working insane hours. And then I'd get home, eat dinner, and then me and my wife would log in and play WoW, for 4 hours. And then I'd go in the next day and I'd work. And it was just
legendary. So like, that's why it worked so well, right? Like if you have the game devs who are making the game all day, come home and play, I mean, sheesh. Yeah, that's when it works, man. That is nuts.
Whole life was World of Warcraft. And I loved it. Like I loved everything from, the creative meetings with Chris Metzen and just what an inspiration and muse he was, down to the simplest, dumbest design stuff that like we as game designers, like you want to talk about why a button is in the lower left versus lower right and what does that mean? That's like 2 hours of discussion. And is there a better way? Like the 10,000 minutia problems were thrilling to me. And then also the big disasters, like I had, in the early days of WoW, we didn't really have all the processes in place for like how to deal with being a successful online game. And I literally had GMs, like game masters, these are customer support guys, calling my home phone at 3 a.m.
Oh, crap.
Like I remember this one time there was some faction token in Stranglethorn Vale, and they figured out a way to exploit it. And this GM calls me panicked. It's 3 a.m.
Oh, no.
He's like, I'm just spawning, what did we call them? Guardians of Blizzard. They were these giant infernals that we just made that instantly death touched anything. We used to have them when we were in the beta, like off in the distance of places players weren't supposed to get in case they cheated their way there. And this GM is just spawning them all over Stranglethorn Vale because he's worried because the players are exploiting. And it's like 3 a.m. and I'm talking in hushed tones because my wife is sleeping right next to the bed. I'm doing this because it was actually like before the cell phone days when I actually had a landline. But that's just how, and I loved it. I loved the thrill.
That's wild.
Of those big moments, the minutia. And I felt like through the running WoW Live, which was me and Tom together with an amazing team, we kind of learned how to be the WoW team. Mm-hmm. And putting WoW in a box and shipping it was like only chapter 1 in a 12-chapter book, essentially. And that first, how to run the game, how to patch it, what type of content, how to deal with emergencies, what should our customer support be like? I mean, we would debate, should we have a launcher or not? In the early days, the only reason the launcher existed in WoW was to run anti-cheat on your machine. And we had a moment where we figured out how to put that into the game and out of the launcher. And it was the first time I ever really had an in-depth conversation with Mike Morheim. He's like, you got to bring the launcher back, guys. And we're like, why? He's like, there's no better way for us to talk to our players. And I remember trying to hide the launcher, and to this day, Mike was right. Like that launcher turned out to be the best thing we ever had. That's essentially what BattleNet has morphed into these days. But all those decisions, and when it came time to make Burning Crusade,
I don't know about you guys, but I've actually really enjoyed the WoW launcher over the years. Like if you're a Blizzard gamer, it's all your games in one place. It tends to work and update and not bug, and it's easy. I remember the first time I was playing other games, because WoW like was pretty all-consuming for me for a really long time, and I was like, these launchers suck. Like, give me the BNet launcher. Bro, I remember the first time I had to use Steam, and I started getting used to using Steam, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, BNet is so much better. Like, growing up with BNet, or growing up with the WoW launcher before BNet had existed, I was like, it's kind of nice. You just updates, you play, it's smooth, it doesn't crash and bug out. Like, nice.
At that point, Tom and I were leads. We were full. They had actually promoted us. There were 2 big exoduses of groups that quit Blizzard. They were disenfranchised. If you can believe it, like we just shipped World of Warcraft and this whole group just walked out the door. I was actually sitting, my desk faced Morheim's office, and I watched them all go in and quit. And they were the group that formed Carbine, which made the game WildStar. Ended up taking them 10 years to make. And they were just really unhappy with World of Warcraft, and they were unhappy with
Wow.
I don't know what they were unhappy with. They were unhappy enough to walk out the door right after we had shipped WoW.
That's incredible. But what is it?
Wait.
Just because
They left in 2004 to end up making WildStar that didn't come out until 10 years later? So like 2014? I didn't know it was in production that long. Wow. I thought they left much later. Like much later. I don't know when I thought. I thought it was in production maybe 4 years. They left in like 2010 or something. I didn't know it was like, that's crazy. Holy moly.
they put their heart and soul in the game and they maybe get exhausted in a certain kind of way.
Yeah, and I don't want to, it's not fair of me to speak on their behalf. I think they were promised some compensation that they didn't immediately see. I don't know if the game, like here's the weird part when you make a game. When you come up with the idea and you start pitching it to people, that's the best the game is ever going to be. And then you work on it, like, you know, games I worked on take 5 years, you know, Overwatch was 2.5, 3 years. Every day you get close to ship, the imagination of the ideal game gets farther and farther from the reality, and you're always shipping this like greatly sacrificed thing that nowhere near matches the imagination of the inception of the idea. So you become disenfranchised with the concept.
So in some sense, you're constantly in a state of disappointment. You're basically shipping a lesser thing than you've been dreaming about. So
Yes.
you're doing less and less and less, saying no and no and cutting and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's difficult, psychologically difficult, but nevertheless, the result when you zoom out is one of the greatest games of all time that millions of people played for thousands of hours. It's just
tens of thousands.
Did you ever have an
more
experience, a realization how huge WoW was? In terms of not like statistics on the server and so on, but the cultural impact it had.
The first time was the first BlizzCon, which was in 2005.
BlizzCon special, man.
So when WoW shipped, and this is so weird to tell people, but on the team, not everyone, but a lot of us were very demoralized after WoW shipped. There were all sorts of issues with the servers because the game did way more successful than we expected it to do. And the server load was just nuts. Like we were doing our best to hire database programmers, you know, because we just didn't know how to deal with this sheer scope of the game. But when you're an individual, like, and at that time, like I mentioned, there were multiple exoduses of people who quit Blizzard. They went and formed a couple notable studios. One was Carbine. The other was Red 5. And we lost like kind of our core people. Like when Red 5 started, that was our team leader. That was Mark Kern and our art director,
wow,
Bill
I didn't
Petrus.
know Mark
They
left so
quit.
early.
When Carbine started, it was, I think, all of our animators and some of our best programmers. And like, it's really demoralizing when you lose team members like that. But then we were also underwater.
I wonder what happened. Because so WoW launches, it's like way more successful than anyone thinks. And then everyone at Blizzard bounces. I wonder what happened. Is there a place to read up on this? I know there's that one book. What's it called? Play Nice, I think. Maybe it's in there. What video is this? This is the Jeff Kaplan WoW interview with Lex Fridman. It wasn't their vision, crunch, money. I have not read Play Nice. I have it on my reading list. I kind of want to check it out because I'm kind of curious. Like, it was so massively successful and everyone bounced. That's wild. But then TBC comes out. It might have been that they were getting paid $35K a year. I mean, yeah, maybe. Stress, leadership issues, same old story. Huh. He said it was before WoW hit big, though. Did he? I think it was more like during WoW hitting big. It's like as it was kind of happening.
like the servers aren't running. We're not able to keep up with demand. And we had to start putting patches out. And now we're making patches like, for a while we had one animator who stuck around, and then eventually he left also. But you're doing like, okay, we got to now do a patch without an animator. A lot of our art team was gone at that point, and you're trying to keep the ship afloat, and the morale was just in the shitter. Like everybody felt very down on Team 2, the WoW team is called Team 2, and that we had somehow failed. And during that time, there was this idea to do BlizzCon. And the way that started was EverQuest had done these like meetups because they knew it was like a big guild social game, and people would get together at like some hotel ballroom, and you'd sit with your guild at like a banquet room table. And to give credit where credit's due, I remember sitting in the meeting for what was to become BlizzCon. It was Pardo who said, Blizzard's bigger than that. We're not just one game. And I know everybody's focused on World of Warcraft right now. We should do BlizzCon. And at the time, we had a game called StarCraft Ghost was in development, and that was getting ready to show. And there was Frozen Throne, which was the expansion to Warcraft 3. But like we knew we were going to make StarCraft 2. And then there was a lot of motion happening with Blizzard North, which is a whole separate story. But there was like, hey, we could really do a cool show. That's this BlizzCon thing. And at first, we kind of announced it, and it just was crickets. You know, when you're like excited about something, you're like, man, everybody's going to love, like, we're doing BlizzCon. Everybody's kind of like, crickets, what's BlizzCon? Who cares?
Dang, that's wild.
We're idiots. We're reading the forums, and the forums are just flaming us all the time. Like, there's lag on this server, and can't log into that server. And that was our perspective of what was happening. And then, like I said, give Mike Morheim credit where credit's due. He kept us committed to that launcher, and they put the BlizzCon tickets on the launcher, which they hadn't done before. It was on the website. And so everybody who logged into World of Warcraft suddenly got this like, hey, we're doing BlizzCon.
Man, I never thought about the launcher as such an invaluable piece of infrastructure for them, because the shop is on here now too. Every time we go in, you have the shop button right there with all of the stuff. I didn't even think about that. It's way more accessible than going to the website. Just click buy, your credit card's already in there. It's like, geez, it's all in there. And then for BlizzCon, yeah, same thing. They sell out tickets in minutes.
In Anaheim, do you want to come? Sold out instant. Like instantly sold out. And when I showed up at that show, one of the most emotional things in my life, it was nothing but an outpouring of love. And up until that point, your perception was because you're just reading online.
This is such a good point, bro. I haven't really like talked about this much. Like, dude, when you go in person, it is so different. When you go into BlizzCon in person, and there's Blizzard, the developers, the teams, it's just so much like love, and it's just awesome. And when you are reading online forums, it is not that. It is just complete hatred, complete trolls, people this and that. But when you actually like go in there in person, it's like, all right, we're all just trying to make the best game we can here. Let's try to figure this thing out. All the players are there, the fans. It is so awesome. And can't relate. Yeah, maybe you haven't been to BlizzCon, but when you go to BlizzCon, man, it's like all your friends are there. You're seeing everyone. All the devs are there. I mean, it is nuts, bro. My favorite part about BlizzCon, though, isn't even like the event. It's like seeing all the people you've gamed with for like hundreds of hours. But yeah, if you're chronic, I guess my point of saying all of this is if you're chronically online, it's really easy to get like this incredibly negative perception of like what's actually happening. And if you go outside and touch some grass and like actually go face to face with someone, even that same person is going to give you more constructive feedback, like face to face. there's something about the internet when you're like anonymous and you can just type whatever you want with no repercussions. So it just, things just get toxic, like online. It just does. But then when it's that, you take that literal same toxic person that's typed all that stuff and you bring them face to face with a developer, they'd be like, yeah, you know, I really liked the game. You know, I have some feedback. They just typed all of this crazy stuff. You know, in person, we don't act like this, but on the internet, we do. Right? It's a fascinating thing. It really is.
And it was, the perception is such hatred because people who are passionate online, they express themselves in the harshest ways because it gets attention. You know, that's the lesson I should have learned from my early days. And it's such an unfortunate thing because then you met these people in person and they loved World of Warcraft. And all they wanted to do was talk about World of Warcraft and hear about what was coming next and be around other people who loved World of Warcraft. And
it's incredible. It's a fascinating thing to me about human nature, and it's absolutely true. And I wish it was a thing that could be solved, but then again, maybe not. Maybe that's just the way it is. But in person, all of the people that are passionate about a particular topic, and whatever that topic is, it could be games, it could be conferences, technical conferences, they're all mostly full of love. And just the way they talk about stuff, they nerd out. Even the disagreements are drenched in this respect and appreciation and love for the game, for the topic. And online, you're right. I don't know if it's because of popularity or clicks or so on, but it's just the way of speaking on the internet is more mockery and
cynical.
If you say, I love this thing, here's an apple, I love apples.
That's literally what I just said, is the same thing Lex is saying. I think it's something with human nature. We weren't built to converse. We were built to converse face to face, right? You don't just say something completely rude to someone, or else you might get hit or punched. Like, you don't say that. But online, you're anonymous. There's no repercussions. You say whatever you want, and it just gets so toxic. But in person, it's like, let's try to have some like, there's just so much more love, man. It's just like, let's have some common ground here. Let's talk this out. Even if I don't like what you're doing, let's have a conversation. Like, you just don't say that stuff. But yeah, now that we're in the internet era, the internet age, and it's just like, it's so much more toxic, man.
I love bananas. I love fruit. Like, I love X, whatever. You just get made fun of.
Yeah.
You get, and then so what the lesson you learn from that is, well, I'm just not going to speak up when I love something. I'm going to instead speak up when I maybe how much I hate another thing that's.
So as a content creator and as someone who's, you know, generally on the more positive side of things, I can relate so much to this. Do you guys know how much crap I get for being too positive? Do you guys know how much crap I get for being a shill when I just try to say nice things about the game that I enjoy playing? And if I have feedback, then I give them that too, but I say it in a way that I pretend that they're face to face to me and they're another human being behind the monitor and not just like a troll internet. This is trash. I get a lot of hate for it. But I don't care, because I know there's another person on the other side. I know it's a developer. I've said things like, yo, I don't like the art in retail as much, but I still know the artist is on the other end. And it's like, you know, the art in retail is fine. It is what it is, you know, might not be my cup of tea, but what I won't say is this art is awful. You know, like, just, it's like, man, because like, I gotta level up here a little bit, man. Like, I don't know, but yeah, something with that is spot on, bro. The online, like, toxic culture. If you are too positive, you get like hated on. But everyone in real life is kind of more like that if there's another human on the other end. But it's the same thing on the internet, but it's just less tangible. So similar
to it, or maybe join in when we're making fun of a particular quirky thing. about don't you hate it when bananas are too ripe or too, versus like not saying calling out the elephant in the room is we're all gathered here today because we love the thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an aspect of the internet that I think is jarring to a lot of people depending on the game. But if you go to Discord or Reddit or so on, in the communities that love a particular video game, if you're not used to it, and I don't often go, so when I go, it's like, wow, there's a lot of like pretty intense kind of mockery and derision and so on. But you get used to it pretty quick and you understand it. And just, I wish there was more love.
I feel bad because I played a role in the earliest development of some of that online culture. It really was social media before it was called social media.
Yeah, definitely.
I had this reputation for being edgier than I really was.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple notable posts that survived 30 years that people like to look back on, but they don't look back on the ones where I'm just being chill. And that's unfortunate. I think a lot as a game designer about the design of social media. And unfortunately, social media in general is designed in such a way where the maximum hyperbole works. And that's how you get the most points, is by being max hyperbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, unfortunately, it's more in the negative direction than the positive direction. If I say, that's a pretty nice mug. I've seen nicer, but I like this one. No one's interested in that. I have to either love this thing or better,
True.
This thing's a crime against humanity
Yep.
in some way. And it's very self-reinforcing, and everybody sort of feeds into it. And
especially when you're young, I got to see this kind of interesting thing. So I was I spent, as we were talking about, you're from Pasadena. I've been spending a lot of time in Caltech and working on robots. And we get to see students come in from high school, undergraduates come in and like a tour, hang out with the robots. And middle school also. And the interesting thing you see, the younger they are, the more prevalent this effect, which is all of them are kind of afraid to show that they think a thing is awesome. You could just feel they're checking, is it okay?
yeah,
So they're kind of like, the default mode is whatever, everything is stupid, this is stupid, that, because that's the safe place to be. It's a real act of vulnerability. I would say it's an act of courage, especially for a young person, to be like, holy shit, that's awesome. Like
that's a fair point. I mean, yeah, what age is this? Like middle school boys, where it's like, even high school, nothing phases me. Oh, that's not cool. I'm not impressed. Yeah, I'm not impressed by that. That's not cool. It's just like how it was. And then you like grow up a little bit and it's like, hopefully you grow out of that, but like totally, bro, totally.
If I think this is awesome, I'm going to be the nerd. I'm going to take the risk and be made fun of for saying I love this. In that case, I love this robot. So that's an actual psychological effect that also young people are dealing with in person also. So I just want to say, for young people listening to this, be vulnerable, be courageous, and say you love a thing if you love a thing, and do more of that on the internet. I think people make up the internet. People build the internet, and young people more than anybody else define the future of the internet. So put more love out there in the world. If you love a video game, if you love Overwatch, say you love it.
Yeah, cool.
I couldn't agree more. As somebody who's taken a lot of heat online, like any game developer, you just get destroyed. Doing what you do, you must get destroyed, and it doesn't matter. You get 100 compliments. It's the one, you're supposed to read it and supposed to be fine with it and have it not affect you. It'll stay with you for years.
Yeah.
I have those, and I think of it like the cheesy the cheesy way I think about it is like, is there some kind of social Darwinism going on? And my big worry is that there are creators, like now being a creator of anything, writer, musician, make online videos, whatever creator means to you, make games. Now part of the skill set is being able to weather like a fire hose of criticism like the world has never seen. And I make up these scenarios in my head of like, would Van Gogh have existed if, Reddit and all these things were out there commenting on, like, how many people were able to communicate with Beethoven in his lifetime or in a week? Like, how many influences could comment on his music directly to him versus like, if I want to insult Brad Pitt right now, I can just go on 10 different devices and do it. And it's like, that level of access is very dangerous. And I worry that there is a whole group of people who's receding from us that will never see the brilliance, and they're being shut out by the negativity. There's a very real example was
that's really interesting.
Jay Wilson, who I think is one of the great design minds, who was the game director of Diablo 3. And he took so much heat, it just affected him to the point where he essentially retired from making games. When, wrote novels, I was very happy for him because, I'm glad he found his place. And I think he's getting back into making games now. But we essentially, like, think how many people loved Diablo 3 and played the shit out of Diablo 3. Mm-hmm. And Jay is one of the people you have to thank for that. And yet that community basically removed him from making games for like 10, 15 years. Wow. And it feels criminal to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoyed D3. I can relate to so much of this as a streamer. Bro, the comments I get as a streamer are crazy. Crazy. One of the things that I've realized is there's like tiers to this. So I meet a bunch of you guys in person at BlizzCon, TwitchCon, or it's just like if I'm around town, sometimes I run into you guys, or whenever I'm out in California, I feel like we meet some people because there's a lot of people out there. Anyway, I run into you guys. I've only had a positive, overwhelmingly 100% positive. I've never had a troll in person. Okay. Everyone's really nice. We've already talked about that, like online toxicity. It's like, okay, next level of this is online chatting with live video. So a live stream. I have generally pretty positive experiences with live streaming as well. Not as much as in person. There's trolls on live streams, right? But if there's a troll in the comments, at least we can talk. Maybe I say something, they disagree. I'll be like, you have a good point there. Or I disagree with why you disagree. Let's have a conversation. And that's why I like live streaming so much, is because it's almost like talking face to face, but not quite. It's like a level below, right? Or maybe a couple levels below. But then below that, you have recorded video and people leaving text, like a YouTube video with YouTube comments. That to me is a level below. It's further removed from having a conversation with someone, even like another step further removed, to where the trolls get way worse in YouTube comments than they are in the live stream. Because in a live stream, you can have that back and forth, and you risk having that back and forth, whereas a YouTube comment, you can leave it, step away, and it's like, well, that's not what I meant or not what I said, but that guy's already gone. That ship's already sailed. He already left the comment and left the room, and you can't even then have that conversation. So that's a level below. And a level below that is text to text. So no video, like a Twitter or like something like that, where it's like, or a Reddit. And that's pretty much as low as it gets. right? You have text to text, and it's like misinterpretations all over the place. You're not face to face. There's no intonation. There's no video. There's none of that. So it's like, good points. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot being online. So it's like you have your face to face, you have your video, live streams, then you have like a video to text, then you have like text to text. Text to text, it just sucks. So generally for me, I've gotten off of like the whole text to text thing. I haven't been on like Twitter, Instagram much in a pretty long time now. Or like Reddit comments and this and that. It's like, I can't even, it's not even worth it, right? The YouTube comments, I'll scroll occasionally, but my favorite is something like this, right? A live stream, a conversation, essentially, or in person, like a BlizzCon or an event or meeting someone, because that's where something fruitful happens. So it's like this tier list, this degradation as you go down the list. Yeah, so that's why you're so happy, bro. Being off of social media, highly recommend. Guys, we're on a golden kappa train. Oh my gosh. Twitch blessing us with a G cap. If you guys want a golden kappa, just gift a sub over on Twitch, which I'll go gift myself a sub, right? Gift a, and let's mute myself too. Let's see, gift a sub. Gift 5 subs. There we go. Golden kappa to anyone who subs. Enjoy. Okay. That was a long rant. Let's continue this video.
So this is a call to action. Again, people out there support, especially young creators, support them. They need it. Like, you think negativity has no cost, but it does. You're robbing the world of some of the great creations. And also allow creators to suck and to improve. Because that's what the process of creation is like, is to take risks. And take risks, meaning being vulnerable, being cringe. So doing the thing that, like,
every creator when they start is cringe, right? I mean, you could still, I think I'm still cringe. In 5 years, I'll probably look back at my content and think now is cringe. It's like, it's just kind of how it goes. But like, bro, when you put out your first video, I don't care who it is. Is there anyone who put out a first video that's just a complete banger, not cringe? Probably not, bro. Like go to any of your favorite YouTubers or whatever, go to their first video ever, go to oldest, or on a Twitch stream, same thing. Dude, it is brutal. It's first one, it's just a learning process, man.
The embarrassing failure where you're standing there in a silly clown outfit on stage dancing and nobody's laughing, and it's comedians go through this all the time. When they talk about this all the time, when they bomb, right? The act just doesn't work, and you have to go through that, and you have to support the creators through that journey. In order to have great things, we need to support those folks. So after shipping WoW, Wrath of the Lich King.
That was quite the tangent, but that was
again,
good.
Many consider it to be one of the great expansions for WoW. Yep. You stepped down as WoW's game director and switched to developing Titan. This epic.
So that was the online toxicity segment. I guess that makes sense. How Blizzard made great games. Now we're on why Titan failed.